Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Commissioners, I call Lamin Kamara.
Morning. How are you? Mr. Khan, you can read us to me. I swear by the Almighty Allah.
I swear by the Almighty Allah.
The evidence I shall give to this commission
That the evidence I shall give to this commission
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me Allah.
So help me Allah.
You can wait for further instructions.
Thank you.
Could you kindly state your names?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Could you state your names?
My name is Lamin Kamara.
Where do you live, Mr. Kamara?
I live at Carnifing Estate.
You're a public servant?
Yes.
Where do you work?
I work at the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy as Permanent Secretary.
Permanent Secretary 102.
2.
Please sit down. You said Ministry of Petroleum and Energy.
And Energy, yeah.
How long have you been there?
Since December 2017.
Before that, where were you?
Before that, I was Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Information and Communication Infrastructure
How long were you Permanent Secretary for?
for about 4 years.
4 years, that's from
2014.
2014. Before that, where did you work? You were in the service?
I was at the same ministry. I rose through the ranks within same ministry. I started there as an assistant cadet admin officer in 2002.
2002.
2002, and then became an assistant secretary. Went on further studies to do my masters. I came back. I became the principal ICT officer, and then deputy director of ICT, deputy permanent secretary technical, and until my promotion to permanent secretary on April 2nd, 2014.
Okay. As you know, this commission is looking into various public institutions and their relationships to the former president, the ex-president Jammeh,
Yes.
in terms of the utilization of resources
Yes.
by those corporations. This commission has been looking at the management of the international gateway, the
Yes.
telecommunications gateway. The GAMTEL, GAMCEL, and telecommunications generally fall under your ministry, the Ministry of,
That's correct.
that's MOISI, the Ministry of Information and Technology, Communication and Technology.
Yeah, that's correct.
Could you just briefly explain to this commission, in terms of the management of the international gateway, how it evolved from the time you were there as permanent secretary up to the time you left? Just give us an overview so that we can put things in context.
Yes, I think the international gateway used to be managed by GAMTEL until 2006, when it was managed through a third party called Global Voice Group. And then in 2007, around October 2007, September, October 2007, 50% of the shares of GAMTEL and GAMCEL were sold to a company called Spectrum. Then Global Voice contract was terminated, and then Spectrum took over the management of GAMTEL and GAMCEL. As part of that management, another company was managing the gateway called Oratus, but they have some understanding with GVG at that time.
Global Voice.
Global Voice Group. After that, the contract between Spectrum, or the partnership between Spectrum and government, was terminated. The contract of the gateway management was given to System One, a company called System One. Initially, it was for technical support to GAMTEL while they transitioned, because the partnership was abruptly terminated, and they need a stopgap measure. So System One stepped in for, I think, a 3-month memorandum of understanding, which eventually evolved to the management of gateway by System One. When System One left, a company called TEL Incorporation managed the gateway until MGI took over in 2014, and then that was the end of the gateway management under the former regime. That was the last gateway manager under the former regime.
That's
MGI.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they managed it until 2017.
Yes, until 2017.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. You said GAMTEL used to manage the gateway.
Yes.
Could you tell us what the status of the gateway was? Was it an exclusive management arrangement between GAMTEL and is it government, or how did it work?
No, normally the gateway is an asset of the operators. Operator has to manage a gateway. It's part of the telecommunications infrastructure, just as they manage the local communication. By default, GAMTEL was the only provider of telecommunication services then, and they have automatically managed the gateway as part of their operations, their mandate to operate telecommunications services both locally and internationally. It was not like a partnership between, or an arrangement between government and GAMTEL. This started when GVG came in, and the rationale for bringing in GVG was that when these mobile
let me just stop you there.
Yeah.
GAMTEL used to be the only telecommunications company.
Yes.
But then Africell and Comium came. Did anything change in relation to the international gateway with the advent of Comium and
yeah,
Africell?
when Africell, GAMCEL, and Comium came in, there was gateway license issued, which were called VSAT licenses.
Sorry, what did you call it? A VSAT?
VSAT license.
What
they
does
use
VSAT?
the technology. They use VSAT. It's a satellite, like a satellite dish, which provides international telecommunication. I do remember companies like GAMSAT was issued, GSAT was also issued, and Explorium. GAMSAT, GSAT had some relationship with Africell, but maybe we need to clarify that further. But Explorem, I do know that they were working with Comium as their gateway service providers. And there were other VSAT licenses. Eventually, we felt that there were a lot of fraudulent activities taking place in the gateway operations. That has brought down the cost of traffic into the country to about 3 or 4 cents then. And then Gamtel was losing out a lot. Good. So as a result, Gamtel struck the deal with GVG to help, to support them, to address those fraudulent activities, the grey traffic that is coming into the country. That's how a third party started getting involved in the gateway management.
So did the fraud arise as a result of the number of VSAT licenses that were issued?
Yes, I think after, when GVG came, what the advice was, because of the number of VSAT licenses issued, it was difficult to manage the fraud, the grey routes into the country. And I think an advice was given that to bring down those VSAT licenses, to those VSATs, and to revoke the licenses if we want sanity to prevail in the market. And some of those VSAT licenses were revoked.
They were revoked?
Yeah, were revoked, and then the exclusivity returned to Gamtel with the support of GVG to manage the gateway.
So before the VSAT licenses were issued, Gamtel had exclusivity. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And then the VSAT licenses were issued?
Were issued with the advent of the new operators coming in.
Okay. All right. We're just trying to give this whole thing a context. So some of them worked with Comium and some worked with Africell?
Yes.
But none of them worked with Gamtel up to that point?
No. Not that I remember.
Okay. So Global came in?
Yeah, Global came in, I think it was around October, November 2006.
Who is behind Global Voice? Who are these people? Do you know?
It's a company incorporated in Haiti. I think it's a company
incorporated where?
Haiti.
Haiti.
Yeah.
So it's an offshore company?
I don't know, but I do know that it's incorporated in Haiti, but they also have an office in Miami then.
Okay. But who are the people behind it? Do they have names? Because
yes,
we've been referring to them.
Laurent Lamothe, who is the chairman. Laurent Lamothe.
Could you spell out the name for the record?
Is L-A-M-O-T-H-E.
Do you have any documentation regarding these Global Voice?
Yes.
Who they are?
Yes, I had documentations, and I think they were provided to the task force. I was made to believe they surrendered the documents to the commission.
No, we have their report. Okay.
The report. Right.
Can you spell the name again for the record?
It's L-A-M-O-T-H-E. But I have a document here with me. That was when their contract was terminated and they have to go into a special arrangement with Oratus. They had some issues and they had to make some representation to Gamtel about those issues. So it has the MOU they signed with Gamtel with regard to the management of the gateway.
Okay. And these persons that you mentioned?
That was signed by Laurent and Michael Ten. Michael Ten was the managing director when Spectrum was managing Gamtel.
On the part of Global Voice?
The part of Global Voice was signed by...
We're just trying to find
Laurent.
out.
It's signed by Laurent.
Okay, very well. We'll take it from you in a moment. Yeah. So what role did your ministry play? You have given us this overview. What was the role of the ministry then in relation to the international gateway?
All right. That of, maybe I'll give you the sequence of events and what happened. That of GVG, I think the ministry was just giving support to Gamtel. It was an initiation of Gamtel. The ministry gave support to Gamtel and for that agreement to go to be put in place. Okay. That's all we did. As an operator, they saw the need, and also to implement the advice given to revoke licenses of the VSATs that were issued so that to curtail the grey routes coming into the country with regard to international traffic.
So it was a recommendation from your ministry to revoke these licenses?
Yes.
Okay. So how was Global Voice identified? Did you have anything to do with that as a ministry?
No.
Okay.
Nothing to do with Global Voice identification.
So what led to the termination of their license and the coming in of
Yeah,
Spectrum?
I think the termination of licenses came because of the partnership between Spectrum and government for the sale of the Gamtel shares to Spectrum.
You were in the ministry then?
Yes, I was.
What position did you hold?
Then I was the principal ICT officer.
Now we have had some evidence here on the circumstances of the signing of this, the sale of the Gamtel shares.
Yes.
Were you involved?
I'm not involved in the sale. What happened was the information we got, I think the agreement, the master sales agreement was signed, and when it was signed, we were not privy to it.
Okay.
It was after the signature that the ministry, we were made aware by the minister in charge. Then through a meeting that was called at the ministry, including Gamtel management.
That is which minister?
That was Madam Nene McDowell Gay.
Now the Spectrum contract was terminated. I mean,
yes.
that's the evidence before this commission. And but before we come to the termination, how, or if you know, if you can tell the commission, how were the shares valued? How was the price that was to be paid by Spectrum to Gambia government? How was it determined?
It was not determined at the level of the ministry. Like I said, what we were made to understand was the minister was called to the Ministry of Finance, and they were acting under instructions to execute the sale of the shares to Gamtel. But the sale of shares to Spectrum. But where we got involved at the level of the ministry, when that happened, what we did was, now that the master share agreement was signed, which was beyond our control at the level of the ministry, because we as technicians, we were not involved, and our opinions were not sought. What I advised the then minister is that the remaining documentation that needs to be done, we make sure that we involve the Ministry of Justice, to give the right so that we put everything into legal context at that time. And I remember she heeded to that advice, and we involved the Ministry of Justice, and we are reviewing some of the subsequent documents to be signed, only to be given an ultimatum, to go to the office of the president and sign the remaining documents. Because it was taking too long, some people had to report of it that it were taking too long to review some of the documentations, that were provided. So we were summoned to the office of the president to make sure those documentations were finalized and signed.
Mr. Kamara, are you aware of a PKF valuation?
Yes, I'm aware of a PKF valuation in 2007.
Gamtel shares?
Yes.
I'm going to show you this document. Or do you happen to have a copy of
yes,
the PKF?
I think I have a copy of it. I should have a copy of it.
There was a business valuation report from PKF as at 31st December 2006, which seemed to cover Gamtel and Gamcel.
Yes.
Is that the one you have?
Yes, I have.
Let me show you this and just confirm that it's the same as the one you have.
Yes, same document.
Okay. What do you know about this document?
I knew about it, that this document was, the evaluation was done. However, I was just surprised that what the valuation said and the sale, the amount that Gamcel were sold, definitely was undervalued. They were undervalued.
Now, the valuation on the face of it is addressed to the Secretary of State for Finance and Economic Affairs. And there is a copy to the Gambia Divestiture Agency.
Yeah.
Are you saying your ministry was not involved in the commissioning of this valuation?
I'm not aware.
You were not aware at the time?
Yes. But I do know we have the copy. The copy was provided to us, to the ministry.
All right. Let me just apply to have it admitted for the benefit of the commissioners. Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have a copy of the PKF final report on the business valuation of GAMTEL as at 31st December 2006? To be more precise, Mr. Chairman, is the executive summary of the valuation report. We are yet to find the full report.
Yeah. Executive summary of business valuation report as at 31st December 2006 by PKF Consulting Limited, Nairobi, Kenya, in respect of Gamcel, admitted mark SC 78.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kamara, the evidence before this commission is that 50% of Gamcel, both companies, was sold at $35 million United States dollars, even though the record shows that not all this sum was paid. Now, what was the valuation of Gamcel and Gamcel?
The total valuation, there was a range that was given, that the lowest valuation was about $147 million.
For both companies?
For both companies. And the medium valuation was $153.8 million.
143?
153.
53.8.
Yes, $8 million.
And you're referring to which pages?
Yeah, and the highest was $161.2 million.
Can you refer us to the pages you're looking at, please, just for the record?
Page 7.
Page 7.
There's a summary on page 7.
So taking a median rate, 50% ought to have been a minimum of what?
Looking at it, ought to have been about $76 million.
76 million.
That would have been 50% valuation.
Did this report come to the attention of the ministry at any time?
That I cannot tell. I'm not sure.
When did you come across this for the first time?
This, when I became permanent secretary.
When was that?
That was in 2014. 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Right. Spectrum contracts, government tried to reverse the sale subsequently.
Yeah.
Was the ministry in any way involved in this revision of the sale? Why? If you were involved, tell us what happened.
For the sale or the?
The sale of the shares.
The $35 million.
Yes. Yes. I'm just moving ahead slightly. That government became involved. Well, government tried to reverse the sale.
Yes.
To Spectrum.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Where was your ministry involved? I believe they were involved from the evidence we had from both Minister Mbenga and I think Nene Magdolgay.
Yes. What happened was when Spectrum, I was the board member. I was representing the government on the board.
The Gamcel board.
On the Gamcel board. Then.
Oh, Gamcel.
Yes.
Was a Gamcel board.
Gamcel board.
Who was the chairman?
The chairman was Michael Ten. That's the MD at that time. But there were other. There was late Mohamed Jammeh, who was also a member from the government side, and the permanent secretary, the Minister of Finance. I felt I was duty bound as a member of the board. I've seen some anomalies that was taking place, and the partnership was not fairly balanced. So I did a report which was brought to the then minister, which was Fatim Baji. And that report was extended to the office of the president to look at some of the issues that were happening in the company. And so initially, they were first terminated, but for some reason, within 3 days, it was reversed. That decision, because I think the minister first did a verbal update to the president that led to the termination. Then the decision was reversed, so we made sure the report got to the president about all the findings. and which we did. And after it got to the president, he decided to finally terminate the arrangement, the partnership.
Okay. I'll just show you a copy which you provided to the investigators. Just confirm that this is the situational report. We won't, and we will just, we'll apply to have it admitted subsequently. That's the report you provided to the investigators?
Yes.
You signed it? Yes. Thank you very much. I'll take it from you shortly.
Yes, that's the report.
Yes. Could you just tell us a few points, not read it, just a few points, the grounds on which you made the recommendation that all the issues that exercised or prevailed on the president's mind when the termination was done? What were the issues?
Yeah, one of the issues was that we employed, there was a company that was employed for the management of the company called Deticon. And we felt it was employed to manage the company on behalf of both shareholders then. However, the way it looked was Spectrum had control over Deticon, and they were directing things that happened at the detriment of government as the other shareholder. And also, Deticon, given that contract which they are paid for, they did a business plan, they said, on behalf of Gamtel, and again charged us about 1,030,000 euros, and the other one 138,000 euros for payment. I felt if they are contracted and they are being paid to money, they have the obligation to prepare the business plan. They should not be paid for developing a business plan for the company, which I think was not right. And that was one issue I highlighted in the report. The other issue related to the international gateway. I would say by the time they were managing the gateway, we were not aware that they had an Oratus, another company set up by them to manage, which we felt is not fair, that being shareholders, they cannot unilaterally decide to create, I would call it at our level, a clandestine approach of creating a gateway operator in Lebanon, which we don't have any visibility in what they do, what are the gains or what revenue is generated from the gateway operations.
So basically you're saying Oratus was created by them,
yes,
outside the jurisdiction, without the knowledge of the other shareholder, 50% shareholder.
Yes.
And it was controlling the international gateway.
International gateway, and we don't have any visibility about it. And when the report, we had to push because there were instances I had to be calling. We were not holding board meetings. So I had to insist on calling the chairman to make sure we have board meetings. And I've been calling. So we had a board meeting so that they can report on the operational activities of the company. So when that board report came and we were doing analysis, I showed that there were some discrepancies with the figures of the international revenue coming, and I questioned those discrepancies. And the more they tried to rectify them, the more they exposed some of the things that were happening. So I came to realize that we're losing about $112 million, which is going out there. We don't know where it's going. And so I think that would make
$112 million is,
yes, after
every month or every year, or how much?
In the report, it said the total revenue and outpayments are never known by Gamtel, which is not prudent on the side of the company. So far, there is about 50%, about $112 million fall in the international revenues compared to 2007 figures. This situation has to improve if Gamtel should prosper for the interest of their motherland. But what we came to realize that the income were underreported.
Income was underreported.
Underreported by them, yeah.
Right.
And I think that may have compelled the former head of state to go ahead and terminate the partnership.
So they were virtually in charge, not holding board.
Yeah, we hardly meet.
So their contract was terminated. Did you ever come into contact with the persons behind TEL?
The persons behind TEL, I do know the owner of Spectrum was the same person who owns TEL. That is Ali Sharara.
Okay, did you come into contact with him?
I've never met Ali Sharara.
Okay.
But I do know the guy who used to run the international operations, Rahid Sharara. Yes, I've met. I've met Rahid because he's the one who frequents the ministry, and he was part of the board. And Michael Ten, who was the managing director and chairman of the board.
These were the people behind Spectrum. So their contract was terminated.
Yes.
And then the gateway, you said, was managed by System 1.
System 1 stepped in.
Who is System 1? Who are the persons behind
System 1 was a Spanish company. Spanish company. It was based in Spain.
It had no connection to Global Voice or
one thing I
Spectrum.
do know that they had, they were providing technical support to Global Voice then. They were a technical partner to Global Voice.
During the period Global Voice was in charge of the gateway?
Yes.
I see. So they came in on their own without Global Voice this time?
Yes. They came in on their own.
Who licensed them? Was it yourselves or how? We know there was a directive that a contract was signed.
Yes.
But did you have any role in this process of issuing, let me rephrase. My understanding is that a contract might not necessarily be the same as a license. During the period that the gateway had managers, were they licensed?
No, they were not licensed because the management contract is saying the license entity here is GAMTEL. It's saying that they're operating the gateway on behalf of GAMTEL. So that's why they won't require a license. They require a management contract between them and GAMTEL.
Okay. Are they not required? Well, at that time we didn't have a PURA Act. We'll come to that in a moment. All right. So after System 1 was terminated, what led to the termination of System 1's contract? Do you know?
I think that was influence from the Office of the President because it came a point where we don't get involved in these contracts or who is awarded the contract. No, it normally comes as a directive from the Office of the President. It's the office that decides to keep or change the management company.
Was the President at any time the minister responsible for telecommunications?
Yes, many times.
Many times?
Yes.
Explain.
Because whenever we are without a substantive minister, the role of the mandate gets transferred to under his purview. And there are times where we go up to a year or so without ministers, and the mandate would be under him. I think when TEL was coming, he was the one as the Minister of Communication.
So that was when System 1's contract was terminated?
Yes, when System 1 contract, yes.
And TEL came in?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know anything about the coming of TEL? TEL was also Ali Sharara, is that correct? That's the evidence before this commission?
Yes, it was Ali Sharara because the Rahid I knew with Spectrum was the same Rahid who was working with TEL, the Rahid Sharara.
Okay. What was his role with Spectrum?
Rahid, he was director of he was appointed as director of international operations for GAMTEL.
Director of?
International operations.
International operations.
During the Spectrum partnership.
Of course, as director of international operations, he was responsible for the gateway as well.
For the gateway, yes.
And so when TEL took over, he was managing TEL. Is that what you said?
He was a representative, but there was a local representative. I can't remember the name, but they have a local staff in the country.
So what role did he play in TEL?
Rahid?
What position did he hold in TEL?
He's one of the directors.
So now TEL eventually was terminated in favor of MGI.
Yes.
How did that happen? What do you know about it?
Yes. The MGI issue, what I do know was we were having issues with TEL because, you know, the international gateway operation is complex in the sense that yes, the operations may be ongoing, you may have calls and all that, but there could be some quality issues, and also there could be some events of fake calls. There are a lot of fake calls. Fake calls, I mean, is like calls that are generated. When they're generated, maybe you receive a call, you would answer, you wouldn't hear anybody, but then it costs, they generate revenue from that. So there was a lot of fake calls, and the operators were complaining about that, because it's like an extortion of money from users. And the quality was also compromised, because you see, in international operations, the routes, they are cheaper than each other. But some routes may be cheap, but then you have to go through a long way to get back to go through other countries probably to get to Gambia. And when you have that, because of the noise and other things, it reduces the quality of calls. I think the routing of the calls was an issue, and then the call quality was very poor, which also we felt was not in the interest of the Gambian consumers. The other element there was, while they were opening the gateway to, we discovered there was an amount, once came to our attention, the profit and loss account they gave, about $2 million was mentioned, according to it's a fund going somewhere we don't know, and it was a concern.
$2 million?
$2 million.
At what frequency?
Every month.
Every month?
Yes. And in the PL they provide, and I think Gamtel will be in a position to provide the PNL relating to that. What I once asked Rahid, what he told me was, no, this is because of the 35 million they paid to government during the Spectrum partnership, and it has to be paid back, and it goes towards that payment.
So they were deducting 2 million from the gateway proceeds?
Yes, proceeds to go to pay for the $35 million, because I think when government terminated the arrangement, I remember they nearly sold it to another company, Emirates Investment, I think.
Sorry, say that again.
Emirates Investment.
Who
if my
sold?
memory serves. The investors were brought in, I understood.
Sorry.
The investors were brought in.
So go back a little bit. You said when government terminated
the Spectrum
contract.
Yes. It was, the shares were nearly sold to another company called Emirates Investment.
By government?
By government. And I remember the then minister, that was Fatim Baji, was called into the Minister of Finance, so that to complete that deal. I was in Dakar then attending a meeting on this thing. So I had a call, and she explained the issue to me, and I advised her not to sign it, because if we are to sell government shares, the Minister of Finance, who is the custodian of government shares, they should sell those shares to the Minister of Information. Because the first one, when it happened with Nana McDonald's, it happened, he signed before we were involved as technical people. So I had to, at my hindsight, next time is the Minister of Finance that should sell their shares, but not the Ministry of Communication. We are not the custodian of government shares. So I advised Fatim, and she, did accordingly. And I said, advise her, we can take the first right of refusal, because if you look at the Spectrum arrangement, the subsequent arrangement we have, even in the document, there's a handwritten thing about first right of refusal, because we insisted to have that in the agreement, so that in the event they want to sell the shares, we have the first right of refusal to able to take over the shares. And that's what we did, and that's how government took over the shares. And I do understand government only paid $5 million, so there was still remaining balance to be paid for the shares.
So what happened to this Emirates investment?
The deal did not go ahead, because we refused.
So the deal did not
Fatim
go
refused to sign the agreement.
Okay. If you do have any documents relating to this, just for the record, so that we can see it.
I'll check with the ministry.
So let's go back to tell. You were explaining, yes.
Yes, so he said, what he said was the 2 million was to pay off those shares we bought back.
So $2 million was deducted for during the whole period they were, every month during the period that they were, but we will check.
I don't know, the ones I came, the P&L I came across, it was there, so I could not confirm whether it continued up to the end of the contract.
Okay.
But what also happened is I did a report, in the ministry on the situation at that point, and recommended, because the purpose of the report was also when we got into this AIDS consortium, that was, we had an agreement with the World Bank for them to fund the submarine cable landing station in the country, and that the private sector participation was integral, and they need to be part of the partnership, the consortium. And that was premised on the liberalization of the international gateway, so that the private sector operators can also have their independent gateway. It got to a point that the bank were always pushing, and it was a conditionality for the budget support. So we had to lose budget support because of not implementing that part of the liberalization.
By the bank, you mean the World Bank?
The World Bank. So, we felt obliged that we need to make the necessary representation to the government, that is, by then the Office of the President, and wrote a report explaining the need to do that, because what is happening now, even with the third parties operating it, we believe the government is losing out, because there is a 50% share then that was going to TEL, the sharing of the revenue. And if you look at that amount, you value it, even if they were a local company, for example, they have a local office, the amount of tax government can benefit from that income coming to them would have been substantial. And also, there is no visibility. Then they started blocking GAMTEL. Before there was some visibility GAMTEL had, there was no visibility to what was the income, what are the payments, what are the expenses. It's for them to just tell you, this is what we spend, this is the balance, and this is your share. So we wrote this report to the Office of the President.
You have another report? You have a copy?
No, I gave it to the task force, but I can, maybe I'll be able to provide it. Yes, to explain and made recommendation, because knowing that now this international gateway, there's a lot of fraud, it's very difficult to manage, even if you put the necessary mechanisms in place. So if you get all the operators, if it's liberalized, you get all the operators to work together, it will be better to really police the fraudulent activities taking place than, deal with one gateway at that time. So I think when that report was, I did some analysis on even reducing because the rate of calls to Gambia was also very high, reducing the call rates, what impact it could bring in increasing revenue, and what are the benefits to government tax, and also the income to GAMTEL as a whole. So it was after that report, and I made a recommendation that there should be, even a local branch for them, so that we'll be able to claim tax on some of the revenues that go to them. Because after that, the contract was terminated, because I was...
Mr. Kamara, I'd just like you to clarify that area, because the records show that when TEL was terminated, MGI immediately took over.
Yes.
Now that doesn't seem to be consistent with the recommendations you're talking about.
No,
because your recommendation was to liberalize, you said.
Yes,
so that
it was to liberalize.
The gateway could be managed locally.
Yeah, but I felt, what my own observation was, it shows that there was some less revenue being brought by TEL at that time. That became obvious in the report.
Okay.
So
how did MGI come in?
MGI, I was I was not in the country anyway when the change happened. But I do understand that they first came in, and then the decision was reversed. After 2 or 3 days, the decision was reversed, and TEL continued the operations. And that's when the then managing director was dismissed. So Later, that was in June 2014, that's when they finally took over the gateway management.
So what is the date of this report that you are talking about?
I think it was sent, should be around April
2014.
Yeah.
What was the circumstances of MGI being engaged in 2013 when the managing director was dismissed? What were the circumstances? Why were they engaged for 3 days and then
I think the report
and terminated?
I think the report was in August 2013. The report I was mentioning, August 2013, and it was immediately after that. I think then Sabali was the Secretary General, Moudu Sabali, because we were working on that reporting. And then MGI came in briefly. Then the contract was terminated. I think what happened, what I heard, now I was not sure, that the decision was sent to reverse the MGI taking over, and I think they felt the MD was not cooperative in reversing that decision, so which led to his dismissal.
So who brought in MGI?
According to when we were at the task force, we made to understand that it was MGI came with through.
Sorry, what are you saying? When we are
at the task force?
No, sorry. You know, the task force that's an investigation. At the time, what did you know at the time?
At the time, okay. Before MGI came in, what I do know was there was an application sent in by Mobicel Blue for a license to Pura. But part of the license was they were going to have some collaboration with an outside company to provide some telecommunication services. And
a license for what? The application for what?
For mobile virtual network.
Not for international?
No, not for international. But within the license, there were elements in there, within the request, that had some relation to international gateway operations. And at that time, I remember when we looked at it, at the level of the ministry and Pura, we came to the conclusion that we cannot issue that license because it has some implication on the management of the gateway, and the policy relating to the gateway now is that it's an exclusive management assigned to TEL.
Okay.
So that application was done by Balajasi. But to my surprise, when the refusal was given, it was the then MD, Babakar Sanya, who came to the ministry, to really show his frustration about the refusal of that application. And because he felt the arrangement they want to do with them in partnership with GAMCEL would have been very beneficial to the company. But we saw it differently.
So the appointment of MGI, you said was for 3 days, then it was terminated?
Yeah, it was reversed, yeah.
So when they came back, you were still there as permanent secretary?
Yes, I was still there.
So what do you know about their coming back?
The ministry was not involved. The ministry was not involved.
The ministry was not involved?
No, it was not involved. The only time...
How did the ministry know about it?
Yes. We knew about from information, just, it's Gambia.
So you never received any official communication informing you that...
No, we never received an official communication. The only time we got involved in it was when MGI came in. I think that was an issue about staff movement in the company.
What was the issue?
In the company. They were moving staff, some were demoted, and then some were eventually dismissed. At that point, it got to our attention. Then the president was the minister. He was the minister in charge of the ministry, and I was the permanent secretary. It came to attention of the ministry and had to engage the managing director then, that was Babakar Sanya, about the issue. And he told me that it was in relation to the MGI contract, that they have to do some, movements for the implementation of the project.
So what was he doing exactly with the staff?
Some were moved to other departments, others were demoted, and I advised him he cannot do that unilaterally as the managing director, because the positions he's dealing with, those are board positions. It's the board to decide on that. What he could do is to recommend to the board.
Okay, can you be specific? Like which positions were these?
There was a director of human resources. There was a director of core network.
Core network.
There was a director of internet business unit. There was a director of commercial services. And there was a senior manager, another senior manager involved also.
So he
I
was
think it was about 12 people.
12 senior staff
Senior staff, yes.
were being moved.
Moved, and others were kind of, what happened is tantamount to demotion, because some were, like the senior manager at the international business unit was.
Senior manager, sorry, I'm not hearing what you said.
The senior manager.
International?
The internet business unit was moved to become a coordinator at a GTMI institute in Basse, which is tantamount to like a demotion, although the salary was still, its salary still remains the same, so which I felt was not the right thing to do. If he wants to do that, he needs to recommend to the board and let the board, look at his recommendations and deal with the issue. And I wrote it to that effect because it was a communication between me and him. I felt it is necessary to put it in writing for tomorrow, for the sake of tomorrow, to know what was my position with regard to the position. They refused to go because me, as the permanent secretary, I was the one backing them. And I showed him the letter I wrote and what were my, position on the issue. And he requested that I call the staff, the 12 staff, to ask them to move to the various positions they were assigned. I refused. I said to him, I'm not going to do that because I've never been talking to them and I'm not going to talk to them. But down the line, it looked like it was an arrangement to really implicate me, because if I had made that call, I've seen a letter that was written to the president reporting me, and the way it was put, if I had made those calls, there would have been evidence against me that I am the one propagating instigating those staff to revolt against management. But I decided, I refused, and I said I've not been talking to them, and I'm not going to call them. Some of them I don't even have their numbers. So
which staff are you talking about? Gamtel staff or your own line minister?
Gamtel staff.
What did they have to do with PMO?
That's why I said, to my surprise, I was called by the office of the permanent secretary.
Thank you.
Because I remember even when I wrote that letter to the MD, it decided to send it to the board secretary for the copy for the board members, and the letter was intercepted. And I had to personally drive to the chairman's house in Banjulindin to deliver the letter. And but during the course, the letters were being intercepted. Even I was called to the office of the president then regarding same issue by the then Secretary General Kalilu Bayo. It was a mediation meeting anyway, and he asked me about the issue. I explained, and I explained to him about the letter I wrote, which they were copied, but he confirmed to me he did not see the letter, so I had to make a copy for him and give it to him. So that was it.
So what happened about the staff?
Eventually, after that exercise, some of the staff were dismissed, and one of them was jailed for about 2 years, and until this new government took over, then he was released.
So the MD's decision prevailed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would say it prevailed. The MD's decision prevailed, and in fact, another thing what happened was they requested, or OP requested Gamtel to be out of the purview of the Ministry of Information as a result of that, and they wanted to also get rid of me out of the board, because probably they felt I'm not being cooperative. And so I had a notification from the board secretary for a board meeting, and he had to send in an email to show that no, the ministry, Gamtel is no more under the ministry, by virtue of that, I shouldn't be able to attend, to be part of the board. So I had to request the Office of the President to write to us formally about the decision they've taken regarding GAMTEL. And they wrote to indicate that the GAMTEL is no more under the ministry, but still I should remain in the board.
So GAMTEL was no more under the ministry?
But I should still remain in the board.
It became under, it went
under the Office of the President.
Was directly under the Office of the President?
Yes.
Even though you had a minister?
No, then then the President was the minister.
Okay. Or for reporting purposes?
Yes.
They would not report in any way to the, okay,
but
to the permanent secretary?
Yeah, but I was asked to still remain in the board.
Do you have if you have the documents, I believe I have some here. If you have documents relating to the staff issue, you'd like to look at them more closely.
Yes, I should.
Sorry, Council, we will
Yes.
rise for 15 minutes.
Extra Bonanza.
Extra Bonanza.
20 major winners every 20th from February to July.
Comium 2020.